Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. We're on episode 104, and I always love starting the podcast by just saying thank you. I really feel blessed with this podcast, with the messages we get on a weekly basis. Still getting messages about the 100th episode and kind of having other people share their experience with the podcast, and I just really enjoyed it. So I'm excited by how far this podcast has reached and a different number of people and countries, and I feel very blessed. And I could not have done it without my beautiful co-host. So, Stace, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. And of course, I have to introduce you first in the normal way. So, introducing the amazing, the stunning, the beautiful, the healer extraordinaire, and published author, Stacey Brown. Stace, over to you.
Hi, friends. So excited to be with you again. And this episode is absolutely near and dear to my heart. So I'm looking forward to jumping in. My name is Stacey. I am an intuitive. I do readings for people around the world. I do spiritual mentorship and coaching. And I'm an Akashic record reader and podcast host and creator here with Nimesh, and recently published author. My book is called Journey to Soul Center: Discovering the Gift of Surrender, and it's available on Amazon and Audible. If you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to.
Thank you, Stace. Hi, everybody. I'm Nims. I'm also an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. And I feel blessed with this podcast, but also feel blessed with the work that I get to do. I really do feel a lot of us are being pushed to shine a light differently and kind of feel differently. You can feel things around us changing, and I love to guide people to truly shine their light. I really believe that everything we need is inside us, all the love, all the joy, all the answers, and I get to guide people to shine their light beautifully. And just so many beautiful examples recently of people truly getting great insight into who they are and really shining the light differently. So, Stacey, I love the work that we get to do, and yeah, I'm looking forward to this episode too. But before we introduce it, just a couple of announcements. We started a promotion, and it's going until the end of the month. We really wanted to find a way of giving back, and what we decided to do was offer a 30-minute reading or coaching session, and basically you get to name your price. So that sounds a bit crazy, but we just wanted to give back. So if you've been thinking about working with us, you either want to work with me, Stacey, or both of us, you get to name your price. And you get to experience what we do. We get to give some healing back. So the way you get this promotion is just send us a DM with the price that you're that you want to pay, whether you want a coaching or a reading, and whether you want to work with me and Stacey, me or Stacey. If you send us that DM, then we'll send you the link to make the payment and a link to book a session. So this is one per person, and obviously on a first come first served basis. But yeah, we're excited to give back. Stace, how do you feel about this promotion?
I'm excited about it. I love the holiday season and giving back in some way. And as a hairdresser, I always found ways to do things to help in my community. And I know there are people who listen to our podcast that have followed us and have thought about booking a reading, and maybe they just don't know how to make it happen. And I feel like we are offering an opportunity for everyone to make it happen this holiday season. So I encourage you to reach out to us and do something for yourself during this season.
Love it. And the other thing to quickly mention is so once a month, me and Stace have a free Zoom session where we just, again, it's free. You can be on camera or not be on camera, but it's, again, our way of just giving back. So this month is going to be on the 13th. I realize this episode comes out on the 11th. We've still got a couple of days to register. I'll include the link in the show notes. I released an episode from our last free Zoom healing session where both me and Stace channeled a message from the Akashic Records. Stace did a beautiful process to open her closet, which is such a healing, beautiful space. So we're going to do that again The monthly one is on 13th. So come and join us. It's a beautiful way to connect. Again, you get to experience what me and Stacey do. So then moving on to the topic. This is an interesting one, and kind of recording this one in December, felt like the right time to talk about it. And so this week's topic is feeling isolation on our spiritual journey. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, because it's when we start to accelerate our spiritual journey, a lot changes inside us, and a lot of things, kind of we start to become different, and people around us start to notice. And because maybe what we're going through doesn't always resonate with people around, we start to feel a gap. And ultimately, we're a soul having a human experience, and nobody can truly understand our human experience. People can empathize, people can feel the connection, and kind of, but no one really understands the depth of what we're going through, especially when you're going through an awakening or a rebirth. There is so much change happening inside you that even you don't know your version of yourself. And it's like, the people around you aren't necessarily always going to relate. And I remember thinking, actually when lockdown started, right, it was March 2020, and I was going through so many spiritual things, and I'm like, I don't have anyone to talk to, anyone that truly understands. I have a lot of people that understand me humanly. I have a lot of love around me that understand, but the spiritual topic is different. And that is when I found Clubhouse, and that is when I found people that I could at least talk to who sort of understood. But it is, the spiritual journey can feel isolated. We did an episode of feeling alone or feeling lonely, right? And there's a difference, right? You could be surrounded by people and still feel lonely. You could be on your own, be alone, but not feel lonely. And it's just this isolation topic during the spiritual journey, for me, I can relate so much, because I've never felt like I belonged on this planet. I've never felt like that I feel connected to anything. And it's just, I kind of know why that is now. I've done a lot of work on my soul and the spiritual journey, and I know that I'm meant to do something different here. And maybe in many ways, I'm not meant to belong. That kind of keeps me uncomfortable. It keeps me on my toes, and it keeps me really kind of wanting to continue to expand. And that's what my soul chose. But at the same time, it can feel isolating. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting into this topic. I know it's one that me and Stace talk about quite often. Stace, I'd love your take on it as we introduce this topic. What's your perspective?
It's so interesting because I spent almost 20 years in the beauty industry, and I was constantly surrounded by people, right? My goal every day was to serve. I would work long hours. I put myself through beauty school as a single mom with 3 kids. I was driven and very focused on trying to build my business and my brand. And I was a people pleaser, right? I mean, the goal was to make sure that each person that I met with that sat in my chair left satisfied. And there was a huge demand for my services. And I felt like that busyness validated me. And it's interesting because I definitely get this from my father. My father was very driven by money and by success and notoriety. And I definitely inherited that from him. And when everything happened with my son, which I've talked about a lot on here, my life, as far as my business, came to a screeching halt. And I know I'm stating the obvious, but when your child goes through a crisis, that then becomes the priority, right? So I like stopped working and became his primary caregiver. And my life was still very busy, right? But it was as a caregiver, and I was focused on that. And then he continued to struggle with mental health and substance abuse issues and ended up moving out of state. and going to another rehab. And I found myself kind of having what I would say was a little bit of an identity crisis, where the old life didn't fit anymore. And I wasn't sure what the new life was going to be. And so during lockdown, I was introduced to a beauty brand. And to pass the time during lockdown, I would get on camera every day on Facebook Live, and I would do my makeup, and I would encourage women to love themselves. But the interesting thing is that when you're on lives and you're looking in the camera, talking to a community, you're actually looking at yourself. And it took me on a deep journey of exploring how I felt about myself and how I was showing up in the world. And I knew that there was something more. And I had been doing readings for people, like, kind of on the side, right? So I would do hair, and then I would have like an occasional reading here or there during the week from clients that I did their hair and then they came to me for a reading. But I felt compelled to help people in a deeper way. So here I am, right? Like, at what I would say was like the peak of my career. I mean, I was busier than ever. There was a wait list of people to get in to have a hair service with me. And then all of a sudden it's like the ground was like knocked out from under me. And I felt like I was in this not necessarily aimless, but I would say confusing season of my life. And it was extremely isolating because I went from being this person in the community that served everyone on a daily basis to that stopping, and now what, right? And as I started to explore, doing these makeup videos and stuff, I started publicly pulling cards for people. And then I started building this following of people who wanted readings with me. And I felt a sense of isolation that I don't even know if I can accurately describe, but it was like, imagine if you had like your favorite pair of shoes, this pair of shoes that you put on and your foot fits in them perfectly, and you're so comfortable in these shoes. You're so comfortable in them that you wear them every day, right? Because they're comfortable. It was like I was trying to put on my favorite pair of shoes and they no longer fit. And no matter what I did to try to force the shoes to fit, it wasn't working. And I retreated to my closet, which we've talked about in other episodes. And I was in this bubble of uncertainty and questioning what God wanted me to do with my life. And slowly, my marriage started to fall apart. And it was like the more that I went inside on the journey of discovering who I am, the more isolated I became. I wasn't seeing the same level of clients that I was in the hair industry anymore, right? I was very distant from my partner that I had built a life with. And I was very confused about what God wanted of me in this new season. And when I tell you that I felt isolated, I felt completely alone. I felt like I didn't understand this version of myself. So, how in the heck was I going to explain it to anybody else? I would say, even now, there are times where I feel that way. And it has taken me to a place that I've not ever been before, because I knew that God was working in my life. I knew that he wanted something different of me, but I also knew that that pair of shoes didn't fit anymore. And now I had to figure out what did fit. And through a series of events, I was kind of led on this journey of understanding that God wanted me to use my gifts and abilities to help people in a different way. And again, just to be like super transparent with you, all I knew was being a hairdresser. All I knew was seeing people in person and putting my hands on them and giving them the service that they were requesting. And now all of a sudden, God was like, I don't want you to just help people who are local to you, who can sit in a chair in front of you. I want you to help people from around the world. And I was like, how am I supposed to do that? And he was like, I'm going to show you. And I have spent the last several years in a very new space. And I would say, like, I'm breaking in a new pair of shoes. And as a runner, when you're breaking in a new pair of shoes, you can't just put the new shoes on and go for a distance run. You have to walk in the shoes and you have to do short runs to break those shoes in so that you don't get blisters or calluses or an injury. And I've been in this season of breaking in this new pair of shoes where I've had to really explore how God wants me to do this. And I have had to do it on my own. And Nims, when I say that, I don't want to dismiss like you or the other people who have come into my life who have assisted me along the process. But what I mean is, I've had to dig deep into who I am. And it has felt so isolating. And I just imagine our listener right now, like maybe you're going through an awakening yourself. Maybe you're going through a plot twist and you're not really sure what to do with it. I would say, I know what that feels like. And though it can be a really beautiful season, it can also be scary as hell, right? When you all of a sudden feel like, holy crap, like I have to do this differently than what I've been doing. And I don't know what this looks like. And it's the most profound level of surrender and trustful that you can possibly imagine because the old life doesn't fit anymore and you don't understand what the new life is going to look like yet.
Yeah, it's this is really a thought-provoking topic in terms of, yeah, you hear a lot of spiritual people talk about the journey, and I know I talk a lot about rebirths, and kind of what that means in terms of the people around you don't feel as connected to you anymore. They feel different. You don't connect with them as much anymore. And I talk about it, and maybe sometimes I make it sound easier than it really is, because that every facet of you changes. The things that used to excite you don't excite you anymore. It's like you almost feel like an imposter, right? That's that, and you don't know this new version of you, and it's just I really do feel, as healers, a lot of what we go through is so we can guide others. And I don't know how many people really talk about, I wouldn't say it's difficult, but how challenging and expansive. I mean, I know I've had lots of conversations with my soul and really questioned, why did I pick this life? Because it is, when you're trying to create something that hasn't been created, when you're trying to, you feel like you have a destiny, and it's like you feel like, am I doing all the things I should be doing? Should I be doing more? And it's that, I'm blessed to have people like you, Stacey, who can do, we can bounce ideas off together, and we kind of do a lot of things together on the business side. But it's still, there's still a part of me that, yeah, I can totally relate. I do feel like even though it's really weird, it feels, I know I'm surrounded by love, but at the same time, I do feel isolated, right? I do feel there's pressure on me to do to do certain things and to get certain things done, to kind of build something. And actually that pressure is put on by me. No one else is putting on that pressure, right? It's just, sure, there's a business, there's a financial, whatever angle to everything, right? But in terms of fulfilling my destiny, in terms of, that isolation, that I do have people I can talk to, but it's that most people can empathize, right? Me and you, we spend a lot of time together and we really do understand each other, right? But there's parts of my life you can empathize with, but you don't understand. It's just like, when you say that, I didn't take the statement you said personally because I can 100% relate. It's that, kind of, it's really interesting. It's like when you feel most isolated, um, that's probably the time you should be seeking and asking for help. But many times it's the times when you don't. And, we are, we are a soul having a human experience, and that experience is unique to us. No one else is going through the same thing. No one else is here to build exactly the same thing as we are. They may be similar, but they're not the same. But there are people out there who can help, and asking for help for me, is a sign of strength. And whether that's therapy or, whether it's getting a mentor or a coach like us, right? Who, for me, I always, with anyone I work with, I'm always very clear. I don't have the answers. Who am I to know your answers? Because you're on a unique journey. But what I do have is I have techniques to guide you, to help you help you understand who you are, and to really kind of help you to connect to whatever you're here to do. And those same techniques is what I've used on me. So it's that kind of, it's proven. And I think in many ways we do have to go through certain things as healers so we can guide other people. And sometimes I feel as coaches and mentors that we need to go through things maybe at a deeper or even ahead so we can kind of guide people. But it's a really interesting topic, right? Because the spiritual journey can be so rewarding, because once you connect to your guides and truly feel the energy around you, and when you have guides and you can feel their energy, in one way you've got no reason to feel lonely, right? You've got no reason to feel isolated, because you have more energy around you than you've ever had before, and you can feel it. But you're still a human, right? So you still want to have that human connection and that human conversation. And sometimes the spiritual journey, you get consumed on the spiritual side, and you don't always give the same attention to your other three bodies, right? We have four bodies: the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And when you're on the spiritual journey, it's so easy to kind of get wrapped up on the spiritual side and really focus on building a connection with your guides and the rest of it. But it's really important to have balance. Your physical body is the vessel for your soul, right? It's important you look after it. Your mental, emotional really drives what you do on a regular basis, what happens to your ego, what happens in your mind. And it's like, without really looking after them, you can't fully focus on your spiritual. So that's why I really kind of, and we talk about the four bodies often, right? It's a key part of our mentorship program, but really checking in with all four bodies on a regular basis is really important. And being honest with yourself and having an honest conversation in the mirror and saying, how do you really feel? Because again, when we're on a spiritual journey and you listen to podcasts, etc., it's like, oh my God, you've got to connect to your guides and you've got to receive your messages. And it's like, again, that can be frustrating. If you don't feel connected to your guides, if you don't feel like you receive messages, then you could feel like you're doing something wrong. But the thing is, everyone connects with their guides differently. Everyone receives messages differently, and there's no right or wrong way of doing it. So, ironically, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing missing, but it feels like there is. Especially when you look at so much material out there, which makes it sound like everybody's super connected and everyone's always connected and receiving messages. And where, in all honesty, this is a up and down journey, right? There's going to be times when you feel super connected. And ironically, it's the times when you feel most isolated where you probably don't feel connected. But we do go through that journey of up and down, right? And it's that, we talk a lot about having a strong self-care routine on this podcast, and having that strong self-care routine, which includes meditation, physical activity, and really connecting with yourself, is important. But then you've also got to manifest, right? You've also got to ask for people to come into your life that relate and can at least be that buffer, right? Stacey, in many ways, I think I manifested you when I needed that somebody to talk to, and um, it doesn't give all the answers, but it helps. Asking for help, looking for people to guide you. I really do believe that when the student's ready, the teacher will come along, right? And when you're ready to help for help, as long as you're open for it, the right people will come along. And my question to all the listeners is, where are you on your journey? Are you honest with yourself? How isolated do you really feel? And what are you doing about it? Who in your life can you go to have like an open conversation and really kind of open up? And have you considered working with a mentor? I met a friend on Saturday who I haven't seen in a few years, and we had a really open, good, conscious conversation on the spiritual. And it's like it made me realize that I don't do enough of that. Meet people in person and have a deep. So again, maybe that's a good thing. Who can you meet? Who in your life can you have a conscious conversation with? Maybe they're not on your closest circle, but maybe there's somebody. And we talked about earlier, maybe you book a session with us, which is you name your price for a 30-minute session. But what can you do to truly help you? So Stacey, what are you doing when you feel the isolation? What do you do to help you?
So I think it's really important to dial in on what you do day to day. So I moved a few months ago into my own place in a different town, like where I don't know anybody. Okay, so that in and of itself is isolating. I work from home, right? So that is isolating. So one of the things that I really find a lot of release from, or a lot of like connection, is when I move my physical body. And I was petrified to go to the gym. Okay. Like, I have horrible social anxiety. I think a lot of people think because I use my voice for a living that I'm, like a very outgoing person, but I would say I have to work at that. And so one of the things that I did was I joined the local gym. And oh my gosh, I was so scared to go in there and work out around people that I don't know and like have that experience. And I powered through. I went in, I signed up for the gym, and I now go regularly and work out. And it's something, even now, like months into it, I still get anxious when I'm getting ready to go and I have to like pep talk myself into it. But I know how good I feel when I work out. And it also helps to be around other people. So I encourage our listeners to find something that you might be a little bit nervous about, but that would give you exposure to being around other people. Because in the gym, right, I'm around people who care about taking care of themselves. And it has been a space for me to meet people. I haven't met a lot of people, but I've met a few people through the process, and it's been helpful for me, right? And it's been something that kind of changes my environment, my orbit for a little while, and gives me the space to process things. When I'm moving my body, it moves the energy for me, and it creates a feeling of like, okay, I'm in a space where there are other like-minded people that their physical health is a priority, which is really important, right? I've only been going for a few months, but it's already been something like working with a trainer has pushed me and expanded me in a way that I couldn't have done on my own. And I was kind of at a standstill where, I would go for long walks out in my neighborhood. I would run on my treadmill. I have weights at home. And I was at this point where I needed to be pushed in another way. And so I work with a personal trainer now occasionally. And it's just given me a space to be around other people who have a similar vibration in that their physical health is a priority, right? So that's one of the things I do. Another thing that I've been doing is I've been doing some in-person events. I just got back a couple weeks ago from co-hosting a women's weekend in North Carolina. And it gave me the opportunity to make some new connections with people that I wouldn't have otherwise met. And they were women that were really motivated to understand how to love and care for themselves, which means I'm around other like minded people and other people who are on the journey to bettering themselves. I would still say that this is a very isolating season for me. I have a partner, but he lives in another part of the world. And so his life and my life, though when we see each other, we're together, but the time in between, I'm on my own, right? And so I would say I'm still in a season that is somewhat isolated. I believe that when you're isolated, there's not one answer as to how to get out of that season. I feel that it's got to be a process. And just like anything else, it's a slow process, right? Like you have to explore the different ways to connect. I think one of the questions to ask yourself is, what do I enjoy? What do I enjoy? Okay, because if you ask yourself that, like for me, I enjoy the feeling after I work out. I don't enjoy the feeling necessarily when I'm working out, but I like the result, right? And so I knew that was something that would offer me some connection. And so I decided, okay, that's an area where I can connect with other people, right? And be in an environment with people who are like minded. And so even though it was scary, I took the step to make that a priority. Where are you having conscious conversations, right? Because having connection with other people who are also on their spiritual journey feels really important. And so for me, one of those things was Clubhouse, right? And having people from around the world who were connecting, having conscious conversation. And I think it's really hard in life to find ways to do that, right? Find ways to connect. But it's something that I've worked really hard to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, really, really good advice. For me, the consistent message in everything we've been saying is you have to do something different because so much is changing inside of you. You know, Einstein's definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing, expect a different set of results. If you're changing, then you have to do something different because you've changed, and the old version of you and the old version of you that used to get excited by things isn't going to get excited by the same things. So, you know, Stacey talked about changing your orbit, and that's such a key part of it, right? And, you know, part of what you did was, you know, you came to the UK for periods of time. You can't always do that, but is it possible to, you know, spend a bit of time in a coffee shop, as an example, go for a walk in a park, you know, just changing your environment? Because the thing is, your ego is strongest at home. Everything you're going through emotionally, everything you've been through emotionally, you some of it you've done at home, which makes your ego strongest at home. And it's like when you change your orbit, you know, go to the gym by surrounded by like-minded people who are looking after the physical body, join conscious conversations, you know, look for meetups in your area. You know, we find Clubhouse the right time, and you know, Clubhouse is a bit different right now. So, you know, but where are you? You know, join our Zoom call as another example, but look for something somewhere, some places where you can have an honest, conscious conversation. You know, it's like when you find those places that you really connect with, somewhere different, that opens you up to a different way of being. And like we were saying earlier, just really challenge yourself. Who in your life can you have a conscious conversation with? Maybe it's somebody you haven't spoken to in a while. Um, yeah, and it's just the other thing I would stop doing is avoid comparing yourself to other people, because especially when you look at people on social media and things, that's not a full picture of everything they're going through, right? You're on your own. So, I mean, the steps I'd recommend is, you know, self-reflection. Really have an honest conversation with yourself. How do you really feel? And then, you know, doing something around truly connecting with you, having some sort of meditation practice, mindful practice, really looking at your self-care and what can you do to truly, truly help you. I always, kind of love connecting with nature and feeling, we're actually recording this very near the time of the full moon, and I find just spending time with the full moon super, super healing. And then do look for places, is there ways that you can connect? Is there people you can connect with in your community, online, um, and maybe explore new perspective? Is there, things you could be watching differently, or you could be reading differently? And then the other thing you could potentially do is creative expression. How are you? Because it's like there's so much going inside you. What are you doing to release it? And journaling, we always talk a lot about journaling in this, but also what other creative activities can you do? Maybe painting is a great way to just express yourself differently. Maybe singing, no one needs to hear you, right? But just being expressive and find a way to feel that joy inside you again. And sure, seek guidance. If you are looking for guidance, then reach out to me or Stace, and if we can help, we will, right? I mean, if the mentorship program we do is really changing lives, and if something we say resonates with you, and I really do believe anybody that works with us is it's a soul contract. So if we resonate, then reach out. Maybe you want to, take advantage of the promotion we have got at the moment. But be kind to yourself. Because when we're in this period of isolation, we really are hard on ourselves, right? We do kind of really, start to judge ourselves a little bit, and it's not helpful. Remind yourself you are a soul having a human experience, which means that, and I get when I say this, people can't always relate to it, but everything you're going through, you are going through for a reason. It's expanding you in some kind of way. It is part of your soul journey. It's kind of what you chose to heal on this human experience. And I get it, because sometimes you think, well, why would I choose this? Why would I, why would I choose this experience? And only you can answer that, right? But the way you answer that is by asking, how am I expanding? What have I learned during this journey? And really challenging yourself in terms of, how are you showing up for you? How are you showing up for others? Are you taking care of yourself? And having an honest conversation and deciding to do something different. And, make it manageable for yourself in terms of, don't pick 17 things that you're going to start to do differently. It's not like a New Year's resolution. Pick one or two things, but do it for you. Commit to you.
Now one of the things that I'm thinking too is when we're talking about all of this, we're talking about like ways to like manage the isolation or to like put yourself out there. But what just hit me is maybe you're meant to be isolated in this season, meaning maybe you're meant to dial in more on the connection that you have with yourself and your higher power. And that's why you feel so isolated. Because the thing that just hit me, and it hit me hard, is I am, I don't know any other way to be but like me and just be open. But I've been so isolated in this season, and I'm navigating a lot of like big decisions, like managing my finances and building a business and taking care of my daughter. And now I'm looking at health insurance and navigating the added expense of that, and kind of figuring out like my new budget and how I'm going to do things. And what just hit me is the reason that I am so isolated right now is because God doesn't want me turning to other people. God wants me turning to God. And in this season, though I might feel isolated by human encounters, right, and human interaction, there is this very deep sensation that this season is meant to increase my relationship with my higher power, meaning to lean into my higher power, to trust my higher power, to expand in that relationship and that spiritual connection. There are so many times where we as human beings look to outside influences to help us or to guide us or to, quote, fix us, right? And maybe in this season of isolation, if you're feeling that way like I am, maybe your higher power is wanting you to connect in that way more than leaning on other human beings to gain your guidance. And I can tell you, when I was doing hair, I was leaning into my education as a hairdresser, right? I was leaning into what I learned in school. And right now, this season is about me being spiritually connected in order to help other people. And right now, maybe I'm experiencing the isolation because I am meant to lean into that relationship first, and everything else is secondary.
It's a really good point. I mean, I really feel that this year has been about us closing cycles and kind of this isolation. And the only way that we could have done everything we've done through this year is by kind of being isolated. And I would always recommend that, we do spend time connecting with the energy and the powers around us. And I also think it's balance, right? It's like when you're looking for people outside, checking with your intention. You're right, if your intention is to be fixed, then none of us need to be fixed, right? And everybody is exactly where they're meant to be. And it's easy for me to say that, I get it. But we are on this path, and everything you need is inside you. And it's that, it's taking time and feeling the energy and feeling your guys around you and truly connecting. That's such a beautiful thing to do. But also, if you are intentional in terms of looking for people outside of you, understand that you're not here to be fixed. But also, if your intention is to connect with like-minded souls to have a conscious conversation, sometimes you connect with yourself when you're talking to others, because our guides communicate with us sometimes by the conversations we have. So it's that, it's really connecting and understanding that everything that is in your external world is a result of something in your internal world, which so it means that you have to look inside for your answers. And, but sometimes you've also got to be open to those answers coming through in an external way, i.e., through a conversation you might have with somebody, or through listening to this podcast as an example, or it's because we're receiving so much information and so much feedback and so much from our guys all the time. It's just slitting out what's coming from our ego and what's coming from the universe, from our guides, and what's coming for us. And that really comes from truly listening and listening with your heart and soul. And I agree, this year has really been about upgrades, renewals, closing cycles, which has been isolating, right? No one can truly understand, and I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there that have maybe disconnected with friends that have been friends for lifetimes, right? And it's that, because it is a lot of change, and change is unbalancing, right? It does cause you, but yeah, I couldn't agree more. Is that, whether you call it God, source, your guides, whatever you resonate with, but connecting with your energy, and just that meditative practice to truly connect with whatever's around you. And there's different parts, right? For me, praying is asking for what I want. Meditating is listening. Taking time to connect with my guides and feeling the energy and the power around me is super important. And maybe we take a moment now and just, if you're in a position to, just close your eyes for a second, just allow yourself to feel the energy around you. And I ask you guys to magnify the energy right now. And if you can truly connect with your energy and your guides and truly ask, sometimes having a conversation with God, with source, your guides, whatever you want to call it, and being honest. And if you're frustrated, be frustrated. God can take it. If you're angry, be angry. God can take it. And if you're in loving space, be loving. God can take it. But somehow that emotion you're feeling inside you, expressing it, is super powerful. I mean, Stacey, we've talked about so much on this episode in terms of guidance, and there isn't really one thing, but all of it's kind of valid, right? Kind of listening to you, connecting with source God, and kind of really kind of being honest with yourself. And for me, having that honest conversation with yourself, with God, whoever, is the first place I'd recommend anyone to start. How do you really feel? If you feel isolated, then be honest with yourself. And that doesn't mean that you don't have a lot of love around you, but everything you've been through this year, nobody truly understands, because there has been a lot of turmoil, right? There has been a lot of, sure, externally in the world, there's so much going on, but internally, everyone we speak to, there's so much change, there's so much things that I felt unsettling this year. Be honest with yourself. How do you really feel? It's the time that we're in, the festive period. We could be surrounded by a lot of love and still feel lonely, or we can feel very isolated because of the situation we're in. So, how we're feeling really is a period where it can get magnified because of everything that's happening around us. And, what we should be doing, in inverted commas, what we should be doing. Who decides what we should be doing? So I encourage everyone that's listening during this season to, one, be honest with yourself, feel the energy, connect with God's source. But if you need help, if you ask for help, where can you get help? Look for people to have conscious conversations. Join us by all means on Wednesday on the Zoom. Book a session with us. If somebody else resonates with you, then just maybe there's other podcasts, maybe whatever. But just be kind to yourself. Be honest with yourself, and truly allow yourself to feel the love around you. Stace, as we close this episode out, I always ask you for some journal prompts. What journal prompts would you recommend for our listeners for this episode?
I would say if you're feeling isolated, ask yourself in a journal style, what is this isolation trying to teach me? I feel like that's a really powerful question to ask. What is this isolation, this season of feeling alone? What is it trying to teach me? And then also, is there something that you need to be doing to expand yourself and the people that surround you? Like the example of me going to the gym, right? I was scared to go, I was scared to try something new, but it's exposed me to a different environment that is helping me to grow my physical body and to feel strong. So ask yourself, like, if fear were not an option, what would you do to put yourself out there in this season and see what comes up? Are there conversations that you need to be having that you've been holding back on having? But go deep and explore this and see what else might be out there for you. But I think the main thing is, if you're feeling isolated, what is this season trying to teach you?
I love it. I love it. I never really know what's going to kind of come up in an episode, Stace. It's we pick the topics, and whatever comes through comes through. I feel like this is a powerful episode. As always, thank you for being here. Just as a reminder, if you listen to this before December the 13th, in the show notes, you'll find a link to a free Zoom session, which is at 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. Pacific. It's free. It's on Zoom. You can show your face, not show your face, whatever you feel. But it is a healing space. It is something that we put a bubble around, and we really do have the intention of healing. We also have to offer name your price for a free 30-minute session, not free. Name your price for a 30-minute reading, coaching session with either me or Stace, or me and Stace. We're here to help. We really do want to support you during this time. We're sending you so much love. Hopefully you can feel it through the episode. Stacey, I'm going to hand over to you to close up.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us. This podcast has been something very special, and we are super excited to hear from you. So send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Stace. Sending everyone love and light. Bye for now.